Like the beam, because it's time for Nerd for 30, the podcast where we talk about nerdy-ish movies for 30-ish minutes. My name is Kevin Bauer, a.k.a. the Critic's Choice. With me, as always, is the fan favorite, the people's champ, it's Tim Keck.
Yeah, buddy.
Tim, today we were talking about The Hitman, and this is an interesting one because this is the rare example where you and I haven't talked about the movie at all before we jumped on mic. So I got to know, what is your one sentence take on this movie?
Glen Powell is a star. That's my synopsis of this movie. He is a friggin' movie star. He can friggin' do anything. Everyone nowadays, all the actors nowadays are being told, you got to make your own thing. You got to be making shorts. You got to make something and put yourself in it. He did that and he crushed it. This has to be one of the best examples of somebody, throwing their own alley-oop to themselves to like slam dunk it. He wrote this thing, he stars in it, he gets to do a bunch of stuff, have a bunch of fun. I mean, it's awesome. Huge. Everyone should watch this one. I think this is a good one. Kevin, what do you think about this?
This is a crowd pleaser for sure. I think my one sentence, as best as I can get it together, is this movie, much like its protagonist, wears a lot of different hats, but it's at its best when it's being as sexy as possible. I think this is like, it's the best rom-com I've seen in a long time. And I don't even necessarily think it was trying to be a rom-com.
Oh, I don't think it was. I mean, this is probably in some ways a correction to his Sydney Sweeney rom-com.
Which is apparently very popular. I still haven't seen that one, but it's,
I haven't seen it either, but I wasn't interested in it, and I didn't hear it was great or anything. It sounds like it was just kind of meh. But I remember there was a lot of stuff with Sydney Sweeney trying to play the paparazzi or whatever of like, oh, there's some hidden tension between her and Glen Powell. They might be dating off set. And he was like, not really about that. He just kind of let her did it. But he had like a steady girlfriend the whole time and like was he was like just a very professional guy. And I don't know. This just seems like he's got all the cards in this. It feels like he's the one deciding what to do. And he gets to do all these dumb characters. He gets to be a stud. He gets a beautiful woman to dress like a flight attendant and lead him upstairs. Like, this is great. Glen Powell must be like loving life during this thing. And I mean, people are going to watch it. People are going to love it. Like, he's the fucking man, I'm all in on Glen Powell, all in.
It's funny you bring that up because I think immediately after watching this, Lauren and I brought up the old SNL clip from Clint Eastwood's The Mule, where it's John Mulaney and Pete Davidson talking about that, where Clint Eastwood, at like 91 years old, directed a movie in which he has 2 three-ways, which is just wild. Like, sometimes you just see something where it's like, all right, this is an abuse of power.
That's in The Mule?
That's in The Mule, apparently.
What?
Yeah, another one I haven't seen. I didn't see
I gotta
great
watch
stuff
The
about
Mule.
it, but
would not, from the trailer, would not have guessed this was a 2-3-way movie.
No. I think that's the thing that we need to assess going into any Clint Eastwood movie now is he's getting older. He's not making as many of these. There could be a 3-way at any moment.
Tarantino, famously a foot guy. He,
that's another great
created
example.
a scenario to suck on Salma Hayek's feet and drink beer off of them. Some of it is there's a light where it's pervy, and then there's another light of like, these people know what they want.
Oh, Jesus.
And they somehow pulled it off, and everyone was on board with it, and people were chill about it, and everyone's happy at the end of the day.
Well, speaking of being happy at the end of the day, I think that this is like a very fun movie. Like, this was something, it had a lot of twists and turns in it. It didn't feel like it was as clearly structured like a traditional movie. And I think that's really a strength for this. I really didn't know which way it was going to zig or zag. I wasn't familiar with the story that this was based on, but I also didn't know it was based on a true story. So that wouldn't have thrown me anyway. So I really couldn't tell, I was like, It really kept me guessing, and I appreciate that in the movie these days.
You give it a thumbs up?
I definitely give it a thumbs up. Yeah, I think this was kind of like a hack for Glen Powell, too, that he made this with Richard Linklater, who he has collaborated with in the past. They did the incredibly fun movie Everybody Wants Some together back in 2016. I adore that movie. And I mean, if you're going to be a celebrity breaking through and co-writing a role that's going to make you the star, get a really acclaimed director that you're really tight with to direct it. Like, it's a no-brainer, dude.
It's awesome. It is a no-brainer. And it does feel like a vanity project to some degree. Like, it reminds me of I think this was on like the How Did This Get Made pod, but the werewolf dude from Twilight was like trying to be an actor after that. Taylor, his face?
Taylor Lautner.
And he made like 2 really crappy action movies. And like was like jumping off of hoods, and they were really bad, but the vibe felt like, oh, this is me attempting to prove I'm an action star. And it seems like this movie had just a number of opportunities for Glen Powell to prove that he can do anything. Like, he could do comedy. He could be a sexy leading man. He can, look cool. He can look like a nerd. He can play weird characters. He's just a multifaceted guy. And it's incredible. I think his character work is super fun. And I feel like it must have been really fun to do. This whole thing is like pretty positive, even though I guess at the end it kind of goes off the rails and gets tense. But I feel like the production for this must have been a blast. And I like that. I like having fun at the movies. And I think a good way to have fun is to feel like you're watching people have fun. Yeah. And this definitely has that for me.
Yeah, man, I dig it. It's to your note about him writing things into the script that would give him opportunities to show his range. One thing that's interesting about him, we've talked before about actors, what their home base is. And seeing him play the less confident college professor in the beginning of this movie, seeing him play that version of Gary, to me, that is when Glen Powell had to act. When he was playing Hot Ron, that's Glen Powell being Glen Powell, I think. Because it's a similar lane to where he's at. I'm going to throw this out there again. You got to watch Everybody Wants Some if you haven't. It's a ton of fun. It's a spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused. There's not much of a plot. You're just watching this baseball team hang out before the fall semester starts at their college. And it's like him, Wyatt Russell, and a couple other people just shooting the shit and having a blast for a couple days.
That's all enough right there. I don't know. I think Glen Powell strikes me as just like a nerdier guy than we probably give him credit for,
Interesting.
I think he's pretty intense about the acting thing. I think he's probably a little he strikes me as chill, but like a pretty serious guy. And I wouldn't imagine. Part of me kind of thinks like maybe the professor is more natural for him, like in some degree. But maybe that's what the movie's also about, is like we contain multitudes, right? He is simultaneously the nerdy professor and also Hot Ron and also the weird Russian guy smoking a cigar and the guy with the eye scar who's like asking a kid if he wants to murder his mom.
Yeah.
Like all of those things were so fun. And it just seemed like they had a great time. And, everyone else in the movie was kicking butt. There's like an ex-wife character in it at the beginning. Does she come back in the rest of the movie?
No. That was surprising. Really thought she was going to have a bigger role in this.
My take is that they're friends and she was like, I need something for my reel. And he's like, no problem. I got you. And they just like, he's like, I got 3 pages for us and it'll be nice. And then we're done. And she's like, great. This is great. I got to go pick up the kids from school. I appreciate this, Glenny. It's very sweet, but they just have it's an interesting group of guys. It's a small crew. It's like, it just seems great, you know?
Yeah.
It feels, but in another way, it does annoy me because it feels like, you know, how just like the barrier for entry of like podcasting has gone up, you know, like you have to, now famous people are doing it. And to some degree, this feels like the kind of movie that a not famous person should be doing, you know? To some degree, like this feels like a star-making performance for a guy that I already think is a star. I mean, this solidifies it for me. But yeah, I think he's probably got a couple more movies in the can that are going to be big successes. And I'm curious how much he needs this, or if this actually helped him get other opportunities or stuff like that. I'm going to be curious looking back in his career how important Hitman actually was.
Oh, I think this is the turning point, dude, because he's been in some other stuff, but my mom learned his name because of this movie. Like, she called me and told me that they'd seen this movie, and I said, "What did you think?" And she says, "I love Glen Powell." That's massive. Like, this is, I think, when he becomes a celebrity, like a true star maker. And then some of the things that he has in the works, I mean, he's doing a Running Man remake with Edgar Wright. Like a remake of the old Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, incredible pick. Incredible pick. My God. Yeah, he truly is a star. It's like a very fun thing to see somebody doing this. And I hope that this is something where he's writing in throwaway scenes for friends of his that just need something for their reel. I love that energy. Frankly, if you have like a really talented, fun group of people, I mean, the guy that plays Jasper is one of their friends. That's another Everybody Wants Some guy. And there's the last time I'm going to mention that movie on this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
But he's another one of the baseball players. And so like I listened to them on The Big Picture, and they were talking about how they wrote the Jasper role with him in mind. When they brought the script to the producers were like, "Hey, this is a really juicy part. We might be able to get like a really interesting actor on this." And they were like, "Here's the thing. We wrote it for our friend and he would knock this out of the park. So we got to give it to him." And so they went for him instead. So like a really cool movie came out of it. You can do a lot worse than just having a lot of fun with your friends. Although I guess that's also how we get 20 Adam Sandler Netflix movies.
And we need 20 more.
Are you one of those people that ride for Hubie Halloween?
Well, actually, Hubie Halloween, yes. But I can't say I'm always an Adam Sandler guy. But Hubie Halloween, yeah, for sure. That's a banger.
Oh, Jesus.
That's in the rotation. That's in the Halloween rotation for sure. We'll do it next year on the pod. He has a thermos that like is like a Swiss Army knife thermos. Dude, have you seen that movie?
You don't need to explain the plot of Hubie Halloween to me. That movie has been forced at me from every angle possible.
I have no idea what the plot of Hubie Halloween is. I watched it. No idea what the plot it was. It was just Adam Sandler going around being weird. And then it turns out other people in the town really like him for some reason. And I feel like that's very endearing. What's her face is great too. Adria, his love interest in this. She's fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
She's gorgeous.
She was great, man.
And she is so fun and so goofy. I mean, she gets to play these like their chemistry immediately. They sit down doing this Hitman thing, and it feels like they're just like doing bits, and it does feel effortless to me. Like they are just. It's first off the idea that this is even a job is so ludicrous to me.
Yeah. What's your stance? Entrapment, right? Like, do you stand on this as entrapment? I
was going to ask you about this. Is this entrapment? Part of me thinks no, because you are doing. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. But this is like a legal argument is like, oh, if you plant a car in a bad neighborhood and wait for somebody to rob it so you can arrest them, is that legal? That's not illegal, right?
But here's the thing. My first impulse on this was not entrapment, because if these people are in a place where they would actually hire a hitman, then that's intent to murder. My second thought was when he talks her out of hiring a hitman, why aren't they just doing that all the time? Why aren't they just using this as an opportunity to coach people as to why not to do this? Like, hey, we're actually the cops. You don't want to do this. Like, this could have gone so bad for you if we had decided to take this the other way.
I think, at least for her, they're selling us on the idea that she has better intentions than everybody else does.
Definitely.
Right. Like everyone else is like, I hate this person. I want to kill them. And it's weird how this kind of the story unravels and he's in court and, you know, wives and husbands are getting back together over this. Like it does seem like what they're creating is they're taking advantage of like a sudden impulse, which is also interesting because they go out of their way to establish a reality that hitman is not a thing. Yeah. You can't actually pay someone to kill someone. So if you can't actually pay someone to kill someone, then why are they having a cop pretend to be someone you can pay to kill someone and tricking them into like and entrapping them? You know, like if they want to kill somebody, but they won't do it themselves, they want to pay somebody to do it. And that person doesn't exist in the real world, then this problem kind of fixes itself, right? Or are they operating under the assumption that the guy in the diner, if he doesn't pay somebody else to do it, he's going to end up doing it himself at some point? Like in general, these are just violent people and they need to be put away.
But would they? Because they also go out of their way to make sure that all the people who are doing it really want to do it, but they have a reason that they can't, or they've like specifically put together a scenario that will give them cover. And so, like, I think that's the thing is like crime of opportunity, right? Where it's like they have identified a scenario. I'm thinking about the rapper and the beef. They've identified a scenario in which they're going to be out of town touring, but their person they're beefing with is still going to be around. And therefore, that gives them an opportunity to have this hit happen and have them not be associated with it. And so, like, maybe that's the equivalency of like, yeah, the car, like the open weekend is the equivalency of the car or something, but it still feels like a stretch. I did do a little bit of research on this too, as to whether or not hitmen are real. The New York Times put up a piece about this. So the argument really is that hitmen aren't really real. There's like individual instances where people have been arrested for being hired to kill someone, but it's usually just a one-off because the person gets busted is the claim. Woody Harrelson's dad actually did like 6 years in jail because of this. He went down for accepting an offer to do a hit on somebody. But then by the same token, that feels like a little bit of spin control, because if there was somebody who was out here who was good at it, they wouldn't know. Like this person would just be going around doing it willy-nilly. The strongest argument against that I can find is how many true crime documentaries there are. Like somebody would have pieced together that there's like a hitman at some point. They would have like lumped it into a serial killer thing like Mindhunter. But the strongest argument that I have for it is fucking Boeing. So if hitmen aren't real, what's going on with Boeing?
Right. I think the idea that you and I can walk outside and hire a hitman, I think that's probably overblown by the media. I think the odds of that are really small.
Yeah.
The mob definitely used hitmen, you know, gangs use hitmen. Boeing uses hitmen. Like our government uses hitmen. Like there are people who are paid to kill people. That's a real thing. I don't know if it's not a hitman, maybe that's not accessible to us, but you know, money solves a lot of problems. And if you want somebody to die, maybe having a little more money is to grease the wheels isn't a problem. I was wondering if this is also like an Amazon effect where you like kind of gamify shopping. So you're more likely to just like throw it in the cart and buy it because you're not physically going to the store. You're not physically handing currency. Like if you're like, I don't really want to like, oh, I'm kind of tired. I don't feel like actually choking someone to death. But if I could just like swipe a credit card and get, you know, Glen Powell to choke someone to death for me, I guess I could do that from the comfort of my home. And I don't even have to get up off the couch to do this. Yes. Check out, you know, put it in the basket.
That's so funny. If you like add something to your cart and you view your cart and then to the bottom when you're checking out, it says, would you like to add a hit? Has someone been annoying you lately?
Yeah. It does also make me think of the whatever. Chris Rock had a bit that was like, you know, we'll solve gun violence by making each bullet $1,000 or something. And he's like, because then there's no more innocent bystanders. It's just like an actual, like, it's such a choice that this is happening. And so, yeah, I was kind of wondering, back to his love interest relationship, how much of this is real? Because we do kind of question her reality.
Mm-hmm.
Is she in an abusive relationship? Is she the abuser? Was a thought that kind of went through my mind at one point when we meet the husband. It seems like they are kind of but she also just kills somebody. So she's a little nutso too, to use a professional term. And I think that makes her so much more complicated. It makes the story that much more interesting. But I don't know. What was your read on that? Do you think, was the husband a bad guy that we should feel good about that he's dead?
I think he was definitely a bad guy. I do think that they tried to play with the idea of maybe we aren't hearing the whole truth from Madison. But I think they really smartly avoided a plot line where she's been lying, just because that opens up a lot of really gross comment sections online. And there was definitely, I was wondering for a while if she was running some kind of a con, whether by a different police precinct or, you know, a actual like hitman agency or something against Glen Powell. Like, they definitely had her using sex to obscure her motives a lot over the course of the movie. And so, yeah, it definitely kind of felt like, all right, something's up here, which also speaks to the acting caliber of, what's her name? Adria, where, I mean, she's able to play that in such a fun way where she can totally walk the line and she'd be believable either way with it. I really hope that we see a lot more from her. I guess she was in some...
Me too.
I think she was in like Triple Frontier or something. She was in like some action movie a few years ago.
Yeah, Six Underground. I don't know. Yeah. She's been Pacific Rim. I guess she's in Andor. More. I part of me feels like I've never seen her before. But
she's not Bix in Andor, is she?
I don't know. I can't help you there. I'm not going to watch that shit.
Whoa, she's Bix, dude. Yeah, you're going to love her in like 2 weeks when we talk about Andor.
Okay.
Wow, I didn't put that together.
The character thing is interesting because that's kind of the theme throughout, is that people like lean into different parts of themselves, and he becomes a different person to interact with her. And then ultimately leans into that so he can continue having a relationship with her. But then she is also kind of playing a character with him. And she is leaning into this. Like, maybe she is hypersexual all the time, but she's like doing role play stuff. She's like, we're in this house. We're not going anywhere. We're like, she's buying into the fantasy of dating this dangerous guy. And I guess my question is, would she have killed her husband if she hadn't been doing this stuff with Glen Powell? If they don't date after this, is there any scenario where she ends up killing him? Or did he kind of fuel her fantasy to make her do this? I mean, she did it. She pulls the trigger. It's her responsibility. She's a rational. She's a human being. You know, she can control her own actions. But did he have that negative influence on her by doing his character? You know,
potentially, yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if she had just walked away, I think that comes down to whether or not you believe what she says about the insurance policy, which I do. I think that she sells that, and I think we're at a point in the movie where that's where it would have been revealed if she did have the ulterior motive. And I really don't think she did. I think that he was a bad guy. But yeah, I don't know if she escaped. I don't know that she goes back and kills him again later. Although, you know, he comes from oil money. He could become a really large problem for her. So maybe it's a situation where bumping into him made it clear that he wasn't going to go away.
He could, but that bump was intentional, though.
Yeah.
She wanted that.
Oh, man.
And part of the desire for that was because Glen Powell's playing this hitman.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is a very relatable thing. I mean, I think it's a pretty common experience to date somebody, and especially if it's a fling, and like kind of just lean in to whatever this personality is.
Yeah.
You know, you meet someone doing improv, like all of a sudden you're going to jams, you know, it's a different vibe. You know, someone's really into movies. All of a sudden you're really into movies, and someone loves getting trashed every night, and all of a sudden you're getting trashed every night. You know, like we've all done it. I say to comfort myself. And, sure, I'm vegan, you know, that kind of thing. And like, how many salads do I have to eat? This is, now I'm spiraling. I do think something cool about this initially is also them suddenly getting into him being the hitman, like him being that guy.
Yeah.
It happens so abruptly. It's almost immediate in the movie. They're like, here's this fake scenario. We don't even see him do his thing during another interrogation.
Mm-hmm.
The movie opens with like, hey, you have to pretend to be this guy now. You've done it a million times. You'll be fine. And something about just jumping into it immediately kind of sets the tone for what kind of a movie this is.
Yeah.
And makes the whole thing seem a lot lighter to me. Right? Like, oh, he's a hitman. Like, this is cool. They clearly want to do a thing, you know? He's wearing jorts. He's, you know, they're just going to do stuff and it's going to be fun. And there's a character and he's going over the top with the character thing. Why? Because Glen Powell wanted to do a bunch of characters, you know, and for whatever reason, it really gets me and really works in this.
Yeah. They just get right to the chase.
So jorts, do you think he's wearing jorts? We can both agree he's wearing jorts in this.
Oh, yeah.
So I've had this discussion on and off for years. I've seen people that wear jeans and just cut them into shorts and say those are jorts. And that, in my mind, is obviously wrong. I think a jort is an intentional activity, you know, like you got a little hem on the bottom.
Yeah, jorts are hemmed.
You know,
jorts are hemmed.
A jort knows what it is. You know, it's not pretending to be something. Mm-mm. And I think if you cut jeans, they're cutoffs. And if you don't have to cut them, they're jorts. And I just feel like that needs to be said on the record. You know, I just want it to be noted that Nerdy for 30, I'll speak for both of us. Yeah. Nerdy for 30 believes that jorts are jorts and cutoffs are cutoffs, and that those worlds do not need to mix.
No. It's not a Venn diagram. No. They're separate circles.
No,
and I want to thank you for being brave enough to bring that up on this podcast.
Thank you. I mean, everyone's so tolerant nowadays that I feel like we aren't. Some things just need to be said, and I'm not afraid. I'm not backing down from this. Some people need to be bullied. If you see someone wearing cutoffs and they're like, "Hey, check out my jorts." Let them know. Let them know what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah.
I'm planting my flag here. This is the hill I'm going to die on. Mm-hmm. Jorts are jorts. Cutoffs are cutoffs. There's no in between.
No. I feel like most pairs of jorts have that thing that you see where it's like a denim strap on the hip. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's a signature of jorts.
With a denim strap on the side or like around the bottom?
Kind of like on the side. So like a hem. Well, first off, the hem is no question.
Yes, the hem is, of course, that's what we need.
Yeah.
But then you're talking about the little hammer holder?
Hammer holder. Yeah, one of those guys. I feel like a lot of jorts.
But I get those on jeans too.
Do you? I haven't seen one of those on a pair of jeans.
I had jeans with those for sure. But I also had jorts with those.
All right. Well, maybe
I think the hem is the dividing line.
Yeah. It's a literal dividing line.
Yeah. You buy jorts. Jorts come as they are. You know?
Yeah.
Cutoffs are just, I don't know, a desperate grasp at recapturing something, or, you know, trying to turn back the clock to something you never were. It's sad.
Yeah.
You know,
cutoffs are innocence lost.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly what I was going to say. That is very true.
If you're obsessed with Spielberg movies, you have at least one pair of cutoffs in your closet.
Yeah. Yeah, you think Spielberg is like the best ever.
Yeah.
You honestly won't shut up about Spielberg and your stupid cutoffs.
Yeah.
And your bad taste. Ugh, probably love Andor too. Loser.
Well,
What do you think of the way police work is done in this?
it's real bad.
We kind of touched on the honeypotting.
Yeah.
And how awful this guy is. And I do feel like it's kind of cool that they're all playing cops because like the chief is just laying into this Jasper guy. But I don't know. They are also just cops, and one of them's clearly corrupt and just talking all this shit. And he's also still working. He's also just like back on the team, which is kind of nuts, right?
Yeah.
Like he's suspended for beating up 2 teens on a video that has 9 million views. And then it seems like, you know, Retta, that guy, and Glen Powell are doing a good job as a threesome. Why do we need this 4th guy here? We don't need this guy back in it, but he's there. He's there. The story's better off for it, but you know.
Yeah. Tim, I had this revelation. I don't think you can have a cop in a movie that isn't a horrible cop, because it's got to be entertaining. And if police work is done right, I do not think it is entertaining at all. I think if police work is done right, it's about as entertaining as working at the DMV. And, you know, the movie Bad Boys is very different if that's the standard that you're holding those 2 characters specifically to. So,
right.
I think these are bad cops.
Yeah. Ideally, in the real world, our cops are good boys.
Right. Yeah. Good Boys 2. Good Boys for Life. These are the movies we would get.
In an ideal society.
Wasn't Good Boys the movie that came out a couple of years ago with like 10-year-olds?
With the kid, like the Seth Rogen movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Not that.
It should be good.
Those kids
Good
don't
Boys
have
should
badges.
be a cop movie, though. Just some by the book cops doing the right thing.
I mean, I guess, you know what? I take it back. I guess that's the exact plot of Hot Fuzz, and that's one of my favorite movies of all time. But they kind of turn into bad cops in the end, you know? But it's after they're influenced by Bad Boys and Point Break. So we're back to
I had an idea.
There.
We should make a movie about cops trying to solve a crime. And the rest of the force is corrupt and the world's in their way, but they overcome the obstacles with their hearts of gold and they ultimately do the right thing.
And their work is buried due to corporate interests.
Yeah. And maybe one of them's getting too old for this.
Yeah.
Good Boys for life.
Good Boys for life, dude. Oh, boy. Those guys sound like a couple of lethal weapons.
Yes.
Tim, I had one more question for you on this one, but I can't remember what it is.
Shoot.
I can't remember.
Okay. Well, then we don't have to. Any other beeves or thieves? Any other? This is just a general thumbs up.
You know, general thumbs up. I think it's hilarious how ineffective the police chief is in this movie, where people just pitch him things and he's like, I like it. Do it. Yeah. Glen's a movie star, and everybody should go watch Everybody Wants Some.
Yeah, I will. This is great.
Yeah.
Love this movie. Everyone should watch it. It's awesome. You know, it's just a good time. I love it. It's nice. They're crazy at the end. They both do just get away with murder, though, I guess
That's the thing. That reminded me what my question was. Do you think that all of the work they did earlier in the movie is setting up the fact that Glen is so uncaring and neutral about the entrapment cases? Are they just setting up the entire time the fact that he's going to be okay with killing this guy at the end? Because there was so much talk about him being emotionless and so much of him talking about what seemed like very real murder and like body disposal techniques that I thought there was a chance we were going to find out that he was a serial killer in this movie.
Yeah. Are they both psychopaths?
Yeah, they might be.
Is that possible? But they also have kids and live happily ever after and are a loving family. And it seems like they have emotions. It seems like they're just both weird. And they're both kind of, I mean, at the beginning, that ex-wife and her, demo tape says that you need to find somebody who's like kind of fucked up in the same way. And I think they did. I think they're both fucked up in weird ways. And I think ultimately they at least this movie is making the argument based on their initial thesis that people can change.
Oh,
you just start acting like the person you want to be, and one day you are. And I think that's beautiful, Kevin. I think any of us could do that. Any of the people out there wearing cutoffs could grow the fuck up, buy some jorts, and just start living life like a decent human being.
Yeah. Grow up and him those jorts, dude.
Grow up and him. Get out the sewing machine, losers.
Oh my God.
Get your mind right. Fix your pants and fix yourself.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody. This has been Nerdy for 30. We'll be back here again next week. Until then, stay nerdy, everybody. Bye.
Stay nerdy. Knees out. More clout. Jorts. Bye.